Know what we're talking about. And also, you can't be a doctor if you just have a master's. We're moving on.
Yeet.
Doctor at the front of their thing and put a picture of a doctor. That's all.
What's up, my dudes? How are y'all doing?
What's going on?
I think I might have bumped into another friend of Dan McClellan's today on TikTok. Got promptly kicked out of their room when I started telling them about John Lilly. I don't know if y'all familiar with John Lilly. A little side note, it's just for fun. But Dr. Hillman was on the Danny Jones podcast again this week, and I'm about halfway through it. It's pretty good so far. It's pretty interesting. And there's a big rebuttal to it on YouTube. But at this moment, they cannot find anyone who has the capacity or ability.
Like the neuroscientist?
He's the he's a classicist, a philologist, a classic Greek philologist.
Okay, I
he
think
does
I'm
have a
looking at the wrong
doctorate.
guy.
He was a professor.
Not the guy who.
Doctor.
Yeah, this couldn't possibly be him.
Dr. Amon Hillman. Dr. David Amon Hillman.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've talked to you before.
Yeah, we brought that guy up. So he was back on
Yeah.
a Danny Jones podcast, and they were saying that, Danny Jones has been scouring the internet looking for someone who can debunk this guy or is even willing to come and challenge anything he's saying. And I think of all the people I've ever met online, I think you guys are, if anything, the most qualified to debunk anything that this guy's saying.
Hillman?
David Amon Hillman.
Okay, give me one second here. So on his Wikipedia page, it talks about in 2024 the Danny Jones podcast. If you don't mind, I'll read this here because it will give us a little bit of an idea as to what's going on.
Perfect.
Do you mind if I read this?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, so it says, Hillman, this Amon Hillman, appeared on Danny Jones' podcast on May 20th, 2024, discussing his views on Christianity and the life of Jesus. He asserted that the Septuagint was not a translation, but indeed the original source of the Bible, and was mistranslated into the Hebrew language.
Oh, God.
Okay. Well, okay. Actually,
slow your roll.
You know what? I'll keep reading. Hillman claimed that using his extensive knowledge of the ancient Greek language and pharmaceutical terms, the Septuagint actually reveals that the 12 apostles were all prepubescent teenagers, and that Jesus was trafficking them for ritualistic and drug-related purposes. Okay, he completely went off.
Buckle your seatbelts. Yeah, no, buckle your seatbelts.
End.
Buckle your seatbelts.
Yeah,
it gets weirder.
We're only halfway through this paragraph, people. Okay, a particular occurrence he finds interest in is within the Gospel of Mark. Oh, the guy in the garden, I bet. The Gospel of Mark, where it describes that a naked youth, seemingly wearing nothing but a linen garment, is seen running away from the site of Jesus' arrest in the Garden of Gethsemane. Hillman claims that what the ancient Greek actually describes is that the naked youth was not wearing a linen garment, but instead a medicated bandage around his ding-a-ling, from where Jesus was extracting an antidote to the venom he had taken recreationally. He further claims that Jesus actually died of an OD of this venom during his crucifixion, as the antidote was insufficient to save his life.
What?
Okay, and I listen. What the actual fuck did I just read?
Right?
That is the tip of the iceberg, my dude. There are mountain ranges of ancient Greek medical text to back up everything this man is saying.
So for
which island? Please show me.
That's why I'm inviting you to this fight, because no one can debunk this man.
Well, all we'd have to show
anyone can fucking debunk this malakis.
Well,
just because
show up.
Podcast.
We're looking for someone to show up on the Danny Jones podcast, which is like the new Joe Rogan. It's a fantastic opportunity for anyone who has the ability.
Did you write this Wikipedia page?
I did not. They did
Are you affiliated with this guy? Like
I am. Well, I'm interested. I'm a student.
Yeah. What is your connection with Hillman?
I'm just interested. I'm just a random guy on the internet who's just incredibly interested in the mysteries my whole life, and I came across this. But
what is your connection with Hillman?
Like none. Like I said, I've emailed him a couple times.
Like none?
I've emailed him a couple times with like some songs that I wrote, and he's like, "Oh yeah, cool, keep it up." you know, that's about
What
it.
the
Randomly
fuck?
emailed him songs?
Yeah, because like he needs some new intro music for his YouTube page. Honestly, you know,
So you're helping him with that kind of stuff.
trying to.
Hold on. My question is, has anybody ever brought up to him that there are Dead Sea Scrolls that are older than the Septuagint?
This man
Literally.
is well aware of that.
So
Right.
what does he say?
It's the language that is the key there that he's basing this off of. There's code, there's things in the language like dialects and tricks in the language that cues you to see how, if you're a linguist, you can look at the patterns in language and you can tell which document is a translation and which is the original, right? By using mathematical linguistic like.
Well, no,
logic.
but if the Dead Sea
It sounds
Scrolls,
like stellometry.
That could be
but
the word
if,
for it.
But if the Dead Sea Scrolls, like the material they're written on, the parchment they're written on, is older than the Septuagint, that just completely debunks him.
So wait, what is on the Dead Sea Scrolls?
The Old Testament.
The Old Testament. It's written in Hebrew, right?
Well, parts of the Old
Is it
Testament
written
in
in
Hebrew and
Hebrew?
Aramaic.
In Aramaic, right?
Hebrew and Aramaic, yeah.
And so
It's not all of the Old Testament, and it's not exactly the same as like some Masoretic text and whatnot that we have, but it is pretty close.
That
It's pretty close, and
could-
it's quite a bit of it.
that could be the case, but when you look at the Septuagint as a whole, and you compare it to the Torah, right? Because that's what it is, right? They're the same book, just two different translations. Right?
No. So
No.
when they talk about the Septuagint, so you'll hear where they brought in like 80 Hebrew scholars to translate it. The only part that applies to is the Torah, which are the 5 books of Moses. The whole rest of the Septuagint was translated over the next few hundred years.
Yeah, it took a while.
It took a while, right? So it's not like they have the same scholars translating it throughout the entire time. The Septuagint was translated from 300, probably around 250 to 1 CE is like the thing with the Septuagint.
Okay, so when was the Septuagint written, or speculated to have
So
been written?
It's a transliteration, first and foremost. Like, the thing is that we didn't understand the Hebrew language. We were actually trying to Hellenize them, and some of them revolted. So we in turn took the Old Testament and tried to transliterate it into the language that we could understand, which was ours, the Kioni, which we still have the alphabet today, 2,800 years, mind you. So it's not original. If anything, it's giving this whole, I'm seeing a lot of it now, where Hebrews never existed. It's always been Greek. It's a fucking rabbit hole. It's like Billy Carson level.
That sounds like a
Yeah.
straw man. That sounds like a straw man to me. That's not really the argument he's making. At all.
Okay, so, all right, I will
kind
jump
of
in here.
is.
So, okay, technically speaking, and this may come as a shock to well, I've already kind of discussed it a little bit here with Cyber and just not with Hanji, but there's a pretty good possibility. Well, you know what? I'm not even going to say that. I'm going to say that. So me and my co-author, as data scientists who work with stellometry, we have recently taken a look at the New Testament, hence our book, Christ Before Jesus. Our current project is over the Old Testament, as well as the Book of Mormon and Quran, but that's not what we're talking about here. What we are seeing, however, is more and more evidence that it's possible that the Septuagint might be closer to the original Hebrew than the text that we have today. There's certain reasons for that. It plays in a little bit as to what this guy's talking about, but he's making certain assumptions because of it that I don't think are too terribly accurate.
And honestly, some of this stuff is a little bit
there's
over.
certain words that just don't match. That's why I'm just like, because for us,
Right.
one word can mean three different things, but for the
Correct,
Hebrew, they already
correct.
have two separate words that mean different
Correct,
things.
correct. But so
And that's what he
as
uses to base his
the early
theory on,
Christians
though.
said in the 2nd century, they said that the Septuagint was closer to the Jewish, like the Hebrew Bible. It was closer to the Tanakh than current versions, because they were saying that the Tanakh was being updated. Basically, like they were changing words and changing phrases that would make it harder for them to point
I don't need
to
your
it
meta
as
commentary,
some
Chef.
kind of
I'm
connection.
listening to host.
But overall, where this is all going is that more or less there's a lot more Greek influence on the Hebrew Bible than we think. And by Greek, I don't mean the language per se. I mean like just like the culture and everything. There's a lot.
Well, that would make sense because we were, like I said, we were in war with them during the time.
Yes. However, this does not mean necessarily that the Septuagint, it comes before the Hebrew Bible.
Right.
This just means that the Hebrew Bible has some words over time that have been edited a little bit. But we already kind of know that, because very clearly the Great Isaiah Scroll doesn't line up perfectly with the Masoretic text, which means there's some times that these terms have been edited over time. And then, that's just to be expected. But that in no way implies that the Septuagint, like the Greek version, was somehow before the Hebrew or Aramaic.
No, I know, that's what I'm saying. But they're saying like Hebrews didn't exist at all. Like there's certain people going around said that they never existed. They're new.
Yeah, that's not what this guy's saying though.
Yeah, there's
that's
also
not what,
Well, like for example, scroll 4Q46. It's written in the Deutero text, Deuteronomy. Those are the ones that are dated to the 4th and 5th centuries, right? They actually have a seal from the Achaemenid period, and they were it was a dynasty that reigned from 553 to 330. That was the Persian Empire, and we have some of the Dead Sea Scrolls have that seal on it. So like the Deuteronomy text clearly predate the Septuagint.
Right. Yeah. No. Yeah. I was just saying that it was just like this whole argument. Like I'm seeing more people out of the woodwork using the Septuagint and claiming that Hebrew as a peoples and as a language didn't exist prior to the Greeks, and I have a problem with that.
Yeah, but
it's erasing a culture.
Correct, but that's not at all what we were talking about. I agree with you, Handri, but that's not what he was talking about.
Yeah, like for example, the Philistines, right? So Goliath was a Philistine, and historians, by and large, agree that the Philistines were probably like Paleo Greeks, right? They're an early form of Greek.
Yeah.
Also, I would also show that what we're finding is that there was a particular group of authors or editors, so to speak, of the Old Testament who went back and added a much longer version of the David and Goliath story, actually. That they went back and added more of that,
Yeah, and the David and Goliath story. There's contradictions in that story too, but so I wouldn't be against to say that the Israelites were influenced by like Proto-Greek culture, and thus influenced by Greek culture. But to say that like the text itself comes from Greece through the Septuagint is just wrong. He hasn't.
I wouldn't.
Yeah.
He hasn't studied the Dead Sea Scrolls. He hasn't read the Deutero Scrolls, which are dated again to the 5th and 4th century BCE.
Like, I even got into an argument with someone else where I was just like, you do know that the Orthodoxy still has Hellenistic practice, but they want to go ahead and argue with me that that's not true. And I'm just like, there's a reason why it's a legalized religion in my country, because it is not just the culture, it is also a way and a ceremonial and ritual thing that they do. But, the American Orthodoxy practitioners, they're oblivious to what really goes on in the country.
Well, the good.
But anyways,
my country.
keep going back on what. So, hopefully that clears up our position on this whole Septuagint thing. But
Yes.
the rest of it, though, is bizarre.
Yes. And the good news is that I think you gentlemen have earned yourselves a ticket to the Danny Jones podcast, because no one on the internet is able to refute this man in public. Y'all are the only ones who seem to even have anywhere near the fortitude or aptitude to even understand what this man's talking about, for the most part, right?
I mean, it's because I see where he might be getting it.
Exactly.
Because from a data analysis standpoint, or a data science standpoint, it's
yeah. And what was the word that you
I
used?
can see where he might be getting it.
You used
because
the word
we're using stolometry.
Stolometry. What is
maybe
that?
That's what he's using.
Yeah. What is that?
Stolometry is using math, which takes a look at the most frequently used words, strings of phrases, and whatnot to attribute authorship.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
And that can help us kind of. To be honest, it can help us date some things. Like if you know what to look for, if we have any kind of outside sources. But it's just, I don't know where he's getting the rest of it, though, because that wouldn't be like.
Well, he's read a lot of
about.
ancient Greek medical text. And for example, if you look at Venus, the goddess Venus, represented as the morning star, and then you see...
That is Roman, not Greek.
Well, where did Romans get their culture?
Well,
from us, but if you're talking Greek texts, you have to go to the original stories, not the Roman-based ones.
Sure. But this, this representation of this planet, Venus, and this woman with the morning star being Venus, and then in Christ, Jesus being representing the morning star as well.
In what?
The Bible.
But not in the Gospels.
Oh boy.
Maybe not in the Gospels, but
well, then why would he be focusing on the Gospels?
It would be in the Gospels. It would be in the Gospels.
There's one extra layer to this. There's an extra layer to this that even as somebody who isn't super well versed in ancient Greek culture and history, can still point out here, and that is the concept of non-Christian hermeneutics,
yes.
where you like if you're familiar with hermeneutics, it's where
no,
like you're like, oh, hey,
I thought you said hermetics for a second, like
no hermeneutics, where someone says basically like, oh, the explanation to this book here in the Bible is found in this book over here, which is found in, like, so you're like connecting things and whatnot. But from a non-Christian standpoint, people do it as well, where in this case where it's like, oh, hey, Jesus was the morning star, so here he is here. It's like, no, you're taking something that is not found in the gospel and you're connecting it over here to something in this particular gospel to explain it. No, you would have to establish that text you're pulling it from is on the exact same page, is from an author who is on the same page as the gospel author in order to establish a connection. Otherwise, that's just a completely separate text for a completely different purpose, especially since the stolometry in Revelation, which is where we get that morning star reference in the New Testament at least. The Revelation, right, the bulk of Revelation was actually written in Hebrew or Aramaic first and translated into Greek when the Christians took a hold of it.
John that wrote that, right?
Yeah. Well, probably not. No. Okay. Chances are no. There may have been a John who translated it into Greek, but it says at the beginning that a John of Patmos was the one who was writing the text, but we can tell from stylometry that the bulk of it is taken from something that was written in either Hebrew or Aramaic first. Maybe John translated it into Greek, and that's why they've attached the name. Maybe he wrote it in two different languages. That doesn't make much sense, but maybe. But at the end of the day, it's attributed to a man named John. But that wouldn't mean that it has any connection to the Gospel of Mark, which is what he's talking about here.
Okay. Well, it seems like we've got a hell of an interesting conversation on our hands between you guys, Gnostic Informant, Dr. Hillman. Like, I think with y'all's minds combined, we can certainly get to the bottom of this, I think. And it's great timing for your book, honestly, too. So
Right.
I think you guys should certainly shoot Danny Jones an email. Should be as simple as that, shooting him an email. And it's a great opportunity for you guys. I have not seen anyone on the internet more qualified than y'all. As a matter of fact, I think data scientists are the perfect dudes for this job. And
Well, I mean, you mentioned something that sounded a little bit like data science, but again, it would be really weird.
like you said, applying the logic of language to ancient writings to kind of reveal clues.
So really quick, is he saying that Jesus actually existed and that this is a story of him doing some messed up stuff, or is it saying that the story is just about like a fictional character who does this messed up stuff?
Think of it more of like a historical fiction, right? Like so there were a lot of Jesuses back in the day. Jesus was just one of many, right? And
Well,
this is the
like
story,
as in people with the name, yeah.
not just that, but people trying to fulfill Mosaic law, traveling with apostles, trying to start their own religions at the time. There's like a bubbling.
Not really in Judea. Like, we don't really have a lot of evidence of a bunch of people doing that. Like, we have maybe a handful of people, maybe. I can think of like 3, possibly at best, in first century Judea.
Well, if you look at maybe the Laestes, the pirates, right? You could think of them as maybe, and maybe also some. They were
who is this?
Partaking in mystery rituals. The ancient pirates.
Well,
of Greece.
okay. So there are mystery cults.
Yes.
Where people start mystery cults, but
Gnostics, all the whole Essenes and everything.
Okay. They're not starting their own religion. They're just kind of taking Judaism in a particular way.
Exactly.
Jewish Gnosticism was around for quite some time.
Right.
I mean, that's just kind of how it goes. You're going to have offshoots of a religion. That's just going to happen. But that being said, as far as Jesus goes, he's portrayed as someone who is within Judea, like Second Temple Judea. So he's not really seen as a person who's like, hey, I'm going to start my own religion per se. If anything, he's introduced as somebody who's part of a particular sect of Judaism.
Right. But
that's not starting his own religion.
He's claiming to fulfill Mosaic, to fulfill the role of Messiah ben David, or Messiah ben Yosef, right? That is his role, right? He claims to be the one who's doing that, and I think there were a lot of guys trying to claim to do that stuff maybe back in the day, like claim that title and
of
make
what?
it happen. Messiah ben Yosef.
Again, no.
Okay,
that's what I'm saying. No, we don't really have a lot of evidence of that.
Okay,
at best, we have 3
honestly,
people mentioned, like maybe a handful of people that are mentioned in Josephus as someone who kind of sort of does this. If you want to extend it to 2nd century, then it opens up to like Shaman Bar Kokhba. But other than that,
well, I mean, Jesus couldn't have been the only one performing these mystery rituals at that time.
You're correct.
Presuming that he's performing them, right?
Yeah. See, that's the thing. He didn't exist. So like. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
You're correct.
So what I'm saying is like this
Jesus
story applies more to like I think a group of people, and perhaps there was more than one. I think that Jesus could have been. I think it's very likely he could have been a moon child created in a temple. I mean, John the Baptist was his cousin, right?
What?
No. Okay. Again, that's only found in one gospel, and even in that gospel, very clearly John the Baptist doesn't know shit about him. So it doesn't make any sense.
Well, I mean, his mother is Mary's sister, right? Elizabeth.
In one gospel, in that same gospel, but even in that gospel, John the Baptist is still asking him, "Are you the Messiah?"
No, yes.
Like he's because he's confused. He doesn't know.
Well, he's also the one who initiates him, right?
The first gospel that's published, John the Baptist doesn't. He's not even in the story.
Okay, but he is the one who initiates Jesus with baptism, right?
Yeah, in later gospels, sure.
Right.
But not in the first one.
Let's be clear though, like doing a mikvah, which is what it is, it's not uncommon to happen, right? In Jewish culture, you do mikvahs all the time. Like it's and going to a mikvah isn't like Christians try to make it this unique thing, but like it's not.
Well, the one that I think John the Baptist was performing on Jesus was a very incredibly unique thing and a very serious mystery ritual. It actually requires someone who knows what they're doing and is well trained in this kind of stuff.
I mean, the way that they portray it, sure, but like again, I cannot stress to you enough that in the first gospel that is published, John the Baptist doesn't do anything. He's not in the story.
Okay.
In fact, Mateo brings up a good point. For women, after a woman has had her monthly visitor, she is required to go to the mikvah. It's a requirement.
Right.
Because that shit nasty.
Or sacred, or potentially, potentially.
Well, it's just a cleansing ritual. Like growing up practicing Orthodox Judaism, normally on Friday during the day or Thursday, before Shabbat, we would go as a family and go to the mikvah because it's just like a ritual you do once a week. At least in the Orthodox community, you do it at least once a week before Shabbat.
Yeah.
Well,
but anyways, I think that Amon Hillman, as much as I feel like he's a smart guy who's putting connections together, I see him as more or less another like more recent Joseph Atwill, someone who is seeing some connections and is willing to take some stabs in the dark and to say, hey, I'd actually like to present the story as this in this way, or as this kind of concept. Unfortunately, I feel like what he's falling prey to is the same thing that Atwill fell prey to, which is the fact that later work within data science shows that he took it in a very kooky way that doesn't really line up with what we see from a data science standpoint. Now, I feel like Hillman is more on the dot, it sounds like, than so, he seems to be onto something a little better, I feel like, than Atwill. But I would be willing to see what he's talking about a little more from a data science standpoint, like where he's getting some of these claims, and stuff like that. It's interesting. I mean, I'm not opposed to talking to him. You know what? Listen, I don't want to message him and beg or anything like that. But if you are someone who is talking to him,
no, I'll do it for you.
If
you
can set it up,
we'll
promise
you
that I am not. I promise you that I will talk to him. It'll probably be me and my co-author who would talk to him, whether it be offline or online. I don't care. We'll talk to him.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I think the coolest thing would just to talk minimally offline, right? And save as much of your conversation for the Danny Jones podcast as you can, so that we get both of your expressions as you're both learning from each other, right? And we get all that raw reaction from you guys on camera, because that's what people love, right? And so just to see y'all maybe
now really quick, are you Danny Jones?
Good question, right? No, I'm just kidding, dude. You can see my face. This is my face. This is my voice. You could probably verify that pretty easily yourself with my TikTok. And Danny Jones, maybe we sound a little bit similar, but we're very clearly different dudes. And I'm just a fan. I'm honestly just a really big fan of the show. Like I said, it's the new Joe Rogan. Like, Joe Rogan's been kind of sold out and kind of lame, I guess, to say. But Danny Jones has consistently...
You do realize when you say stuff like that, it sounds like you work for either Danny Jones or this Amon Hillman.
I'm totally shilling for him. Like, I'm not getting paid for it, but, like, I'm a huge fan. Yeah, no doubt.
Okay.
Like,
and that's fine. I mean, I don't have a problem. If you work for Danny Jones, okay, great, cool. Yeah. Like, you could have just asked me, would you like to go on this podcast? That'd be fine. But, like, ultimately, let's fucking do it.
Hell
Set it
yeah,
up.
dude. That's what's up. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think it'd be a really great conversation. I think that your minds combined will really help to get to the bottom of this bullshit even faster, and potentially even help liberate humanity. That's why I'm so stoked about it.
Oh my god. Well, that's that's the next step, right?
Yeah.
Look, you're not putting that Messiah bullshit on me.
Yeah, no pressure, man. I'm not twisting any arms either. I'm not crucifying anybody either. So no worries, man. No worries at all. Yeah, no pressure at all. No obligations, only invitations, It's just a conversation that I would love to see happen, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. And as a matter of fact, they've been looking for y'all. We've been looking for someone who can actually say, hey, hold on, we've got math and science here to back us up, and confident enough to challenge it, a lot of this stuff is honestly over my head, so I can't really defend or verify or confirm one way or the other. It's one of those things that I have to refer to a debate with people who know more than me, which is you guys and Dr. Hillman at this point. I'm learning from both of y'all, so it'd be great to get y'all together. Looking forward to it, man.
Yeah, send him an email. Put my name.
I need to buy your book still, man. I haven't bought your book yet, man. $3 still, huh?
yeah.
What a
and will
deal.
forever be $3.
What a steal! What a good deal! You can't help but pick it up for $3. Yeah.
And this guy's not working for me.
Yeah, there you go. You see, I'm just an honest promoter. I'm just like a promoter through and through of good art and good work when I see it, you know. That's what I do professionally. I'm a music promoter, and
I don't think Jaron would have much to talk about.
I'm just a fan of what you guys got going on. But I'll pass the joint and pass the mic to anyone else. I was just very happy to have your take on that. And in all full disclosure, I recorded your responses so I can just get it and kind of bring it to the